Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé. Let's see what happens.
Take care of my nieces because I really want to make sure that they feel loved. Because when I was 8 months, my parents left me and my brother. So my grandparents are the one who raised us.
Okay, more background, which is great. It's not great that that happened to her. That's pretty awful. She's saying that at 3 months or 3 years, let's rewind that because that does affect things. Let's rewind.
Because when I was 8 months,
There's no 3 involved. 8 months. Okay. Yeah, that's rough. So for a time in my early career, I worked with a lot of adoptees, having been adopted into a family, and as teenagers, these adopted children would potentially start to act out in some pretty severe ways. Not all adopted kids will do this, of course. It's a small percentage, really. For whatever reason, I became specialized in it. I think because initially a lot of the adoptees in Seattle were Korean and Chinese, and since I'm Asian, they would think, well, we should have Kirk talk to these kids in the family. You know, the Asian kids would be adopted into white families. And yeah, the fact that I'm half Asian provided some way to bond, but given that I'm 4th generation Japanese, I'm pretty Americanized by now, so I'm Asian American. People say, "Oh, you're Americanized, you're white." No, America does not equal white. I'm Americanized as a Japanese American. And for these adopted children, I would observe a wide range of behaviors and disorders, and that led me down a road of research and also just investigating different families and personalities of the kids. So anyway, one of the things that I learned in my travels and in the research is that the bond between the child and the caregiver will often start to solidify around 6 months. There's some variability there, but generally speaking, if you are adopted out to another family prior to that developmental shift from just wanting anyone to take care of you to you're really locked in on a particular person or 2 people or more. If you can be adopted, say, right after birth or 1 month after birth, then the child is much less likely to experience that as an attachment disruption. Whereas if you're adopted past 6 months, particularly 12 months and beyond, by that point, the child will have locked in on somebody, hopefully. If there's no one to lock in with, which will happen sometimes to adopted children because they're in an institution and they just have nurses that will come in and go, then that presents a whole other issue. But anyway, if I was assessing a family, I would ask at what point were they adopted. And what I found was that kids that were adopted at 8 months were more likely to exhibit the kinds of behaviors and psychological traits of someone who had experienced tremendous attachment loss when they were younger. Essentially, what happens is the child behaviorally and consciously and neurologically will start to attune to one person or 2 people, her parents maybe. And as they are depending more and more on that person, and that person suddenly goes away, there's a disruption to that attachment. Not only will the child start to fear attachments, but they might also become very concerned about losing attachments, right? They might also develop other kind of personality disorder traits like lack of empathy, that kind of thing. So to hear that she was adopted at 8 months, it's close to 6 months, but it is after. So one hypothesis I would have, and I would have no way of proving it because there's no scientific empirical way of testing your brain to see if this is actually happening, but excuse me, I'm still getting over a cold. So I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, it's kind of scratchy. I have to pause sometimes to cough. I'm trying to power through. I only have so much time in the week to do this, and so I was like, well, I guess I'll just do it today even though I'm kind of sick. Anyway, so, and by the way, this is late July when I'm recording this, so if you see me on Instagram interacting with other people in public, it means that I'm out of the contagious zone. So we could see that the abandonment, and then not only that abandonment, but also having been raised by your grandparents can also lead to issues because the grandparents might be ambivalent about raising their grandchild, right? They might love her and be attentive, but maybe not as attentive as they would have been otherwise. So that can create issues of attachment, disruption, and injury, such that you can be very, very hurt where there's any kind of, the coping mechanism is to be preoccupied, to be very loud and very reactive and to feel emotions more so that your attachment figures can be notified when you feel upset so that they can try to reassure you. So we could see that being a factor, right?
My parents left me and my brother, so my grandparents are the one who raised us. I still have that feeling that anybody that I will love will leave me.
Yeah, well, there you go. Maybe that's another reason why y'all wanted me to watch this couple, was because you knew I'd be happy that not only are we given some background, but that the individuals have self-awareness around that, which is good.
Going well with me at the time, except my love life. My ex-boyfriend treated me so badly. He cheated many times. So I decided to just go to the dating site and look for an American because I love Harry Potter and Justin Bieber.
She loves Harry Potter and Justin Bieber, both not Americans, by the way. So she's saying that she had a rough relationship in the past, probably recently, and he cheated a lot, and so she decided to maybe find an American to date. Nothing wrong with that, but we hear similar stories from other people on the show that they will have some demoralization around dating and will, try a drastic measure to try to create a non-disaster of a relationship. But what I would wish these individuals would do would be to get therapy or get some sort of introspection on as to what, why they choose particular sorts of people or the dynamic that they create in the relationship. Because just looking to date an American doesn't mean that you're not going to have problems. But also, it creates so many other logistical problems because you live in different countries and the visa and all that kind of stuff and the cultural clash. I just wish that people would try a little longer, a little harder in their hometown, or at least within driving distance, because, there's enough barriers to relationships that adding another one, such as distance and visas and everything, doesn't necessarily help. Now, another possibility is that if you start dating from, somewhere far away, you have a chance to get to know each other, to vet each other for a bit longer because you're not getting physical and that sort of thing. So maybe it helps in that way. But, there's also another possibility of just like, well, if I date someone in another country, I can be infatuated with them and be in a relationship, but I don't have to deal with the question marks that I have about relationships, such as, are we good for each other? Does this person really love me? Because, you act different when you're dating from afar, right? We've often seen that when they finally meet in person. Wait, does that happen with this couple? Because you asked me, a lot of people were like, you got to watch this couple. So does that happen with them? But they've been fighting over video chat anyway.
We call it American. Honestly, I fell in love with Brandan when I first saw his profile. He's very handsome and cute, and I love his eyes. He really looks like Justin Bieber and Harry Potter.
That's funny. Yeah. I mean, I guess I can see that. If Harry Potter and Justin Bieber had a kid, it would look like Brandan, I guess.
I'm gonna close my eyes.
Love you. It was really my idea to be on the phone all the time, 24/7, because I love Brandan so much and I don't want to lose him.
Okay, so she's saying it's her idea, and that was what was intimated by, or at least maybe even flat out said by Brandan. She's the one who wants to be 24/7 on the phone.
But even though I loved him so much, I sometimes unplug the router when I go out, and then I tell him that we have power outages here. It's only because today I'm going to meet my friends and Brandan get jealous about them.
Wait, so she's saying that she unplugs the router, disconnecting her video feed with Brandan as a way of saying, oops, I guess we lost Wi-Fi, so that she can meet up with her friends because it triggers Brandan? Or Brandan gets upset because it's a double standard because there might be guy friends of hers? I don't know. Okay, that's not good to lie. I mean, you could certainly just have a conversation with your partner and be like, hey, I'm going to meet up with my friends. And the double standardness of this is pretty striking. But also to talk about it on the show when he's going to see it. So are there shenanigans happening right now? I don't know.
Because they are guys.
That's very.
Oh, wow. They're all guys. I don't know. is this shenanigans? But anyway, having 3 guy friends is totally fine. And she would never allow Brandan to do this. She doesn't let him talk to women who are cashiers. So yeah, pretty large and stark double standard here.
Hug.
Just a hug him? Hug him?
Maybe kiss.
After that, what we say about American? We can just have a big heart.
Okay, yeah, they're joking around. So there's a lot of stigma and culture, maybe in the Philippines as well, around penis size. And they're saying, you know, Americans, well, what do you mean by Americans? Because are you talking about white Americans? Or are we talking about, because there's Vietnamese Americans. So what Americans, I'm guessing they're talking about white Americans. Huh. Well, I feel like I want to look at the science here because there's a lot of ideas about penis size. And when I have looked into the research, it often does not reflect, at the very least, the exaggerated ideas that people have about that. So let me look up the data. Okay, so, you know, there's a lot of different studies and research on penis size, and what I found the consensus when they pull together a lot of different data, almost an inch difference on average. And that's average, you know, it's bell curves, that kind of thing. But the difference in averages, the difference in the bell curves is almost an inch. So, yeah, you know, not that much of a difference. You talk to people who have sex with people who have penises, and you'll hear people say like, well, you know, well, I guess I've heard a lot of different opinions. People will say it matters. Some people say it doesn't. Some people say it's the thickness, not the length. Some people say that they definitely want it to be a certain way. So, you know, there's a lot of variability. And I say all this because there's a lot of body shaming in our culture, and we have been able to identify a lot of the body shaming done to women, but not a lot of the body shaming done to men. And we still need to be working on that. Body shaming for women is worse, probably, anecdotally in my experience, but that doesn't mean that body shaming for men is innocuous and benign. It absolutely is a problem. So I just want to dispel that and call it out. They're just making jokes, so I'm not saying they're a problem, but I'm saying that our culture around this is a problem.
First time.
Yeah, it's my first time. You know that.
Are you scared, Dad?
Yes. I'm a Catholic, and my grandparents raised me very strict. So I am a virgin. I have never been touched. I've never been kissed, even with my ex. And like...
So she had a significant other in the past, and she's never kissed anyone before. So on one hand, okay, certainly you can date someone without kissing if that's your preference, or you want to wait a long time before you do that. But she said she had a boyfriend, I think she said that, some sort of partner who cheated on her a lot. So what is going on there? Nothing wrong with that, nothing pathological, but I wonder if she's just saying that because she feels like she has to in order to be appealing to men, because she is worried that if she says that she has had sex in the past, then she'll be slut-shamed or something. But it is certainly interesting that she's never kissed anyone, and she had at least one partner in the past. And, you know, it'd be one thing if she said, yeah, I sort of dated a guy in the past, but she says that I had a boyfriend who cheated on me a lot. So,
So I'm a little bit scared about it. He's always jealous, and I'm the same way, and you know that. But...
Wait, so she's saying that he's always... Let's run that.
He's always jealous, and I'm the same way, and you know that. But when he gets here, he will stop overthinking because we are together now, and that will make things better.
Okay, so she's saying that she's jealous a lot too, but he also overthinks and is jealous. And I'm guessing that when he sees this scene, it's not going to help if, I mean, at the very least, it's a lie, right? It's a transgression based on a lie. So she's like, well, everything will be fine once he gets here. And maybe it will. Maybe their jealousy will end when they're actually in each other's eyesight.
Gaselos sa ila ni Mary kag ni Brandan para sa akon si Brandan. Before nga ginawala pa na sa, start na kami lagaw, gaymo namin sang ginahimo namon antes nga nakaabot sa, ang tanan nga ginahimo namon ginabawalan niya na
Interesting. So the friend is saying that Brandan is just as controlling or close to controlling as Mary is, which, maybe the friend doesn't have the full story because Mary tells the friend a different story. I don't know. But if that's true, then this could be an example of mutual abuse. You'll hear me talk about this sometimes, that it came up particularly during the trial. And in a nutshell, very briefly, I will say again that research shows and experts agree that mutual abusive relationships do exist. They're fairly rare, but they happen. And we also want to be careful about applying that label to a relationship hastily, because it can often blame the victim. You have an abusive relationship, and sometimes the victim will be verbally abusive or physically violent, but that's in self-defense, or sometimes they just lose their temper and they just give them a taste of their own medicine, that kind of thing. But the overall pattern is definitely abusive and gaslighting. And then this person, the abusive person, will say mutual abuse because that one time she hit me. And it's a smokescreen, and it's terrible for a clinician to go along with that because you just be perpetuating the problem and blaming the victim, right? So the way that people will talk of experts, some experts, or at least people in my field, certainly people on the internet, will say mutual abuse doesn't exist. It can never, ever happen. And I think that's unwise because, one, what do we mean by abusive? So with this couple, this could be an example of maybe a common profile of abuse. They're not hitting each other. Well, they're not in physical contact with each other, but there doesn't seem to be that sort of classic gaslighting sense. But they both get triggered by jealousy and exhibit control, have a lot of pressure and a lot of potential anger. We saw her getting a little angry, maybe he does too. So they might do that to each other, where he's upset at her and tries to control her, like, no, you can't have any friends. And then when he's getting triggered, and then for her, same, she gets triggered and no, you can't have any girlfriends and you can't talk to girl cashiers, that kind of thing. And both of the individuals feel, maybe at the same time or in alternating moments, they feel like they're the ones that are afraid of the other person, and then they switch. We could frame that as mutually abusive. It is in the abusive camp. If it's true what this individual is saying, we definitely know that she's doing it to him, but if he's also doing it to her, it's definitely in the abusive camp. And we wouldn't say that she's more the abuse. If his is close to her level of control, you wouldn't say that one person was the abuser and the other person was the victim. You would say that they're both being victimized periodically. So, it's one example of mutual abuse. Some people might say, well, it's not really in the camp of abuse because it's not as significant or as extensive, but, there's not a firm line between what is and what is not abusive.
That he trusts me, but he doesn't trust people around me.
Other people.
Like, when I was in college, I have this friend. Brandan is jealous about it, and he wants me to stop dance, so I stopped dancing. And then I lost my scholarship because of that.
Wow. So presumably Brandan knew of that risk, I would assume. I don't know. So Brandan says you can't be friends with this guy at college. You can't dance anymore. And then that led to her not being able to afford college anymore. And so she's becoming more and more dependent on Brandan. So if this is close to the truth, yeah, we could be looking at something that's going both ways. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.